you've just been doing your, I think it's called developing code in public series on LinkedIn, where you've actually been going live doing coding, and we were just talking about things like Replit is now kind of mainstream. If I've heard about it in the developer world, it's mainstream, right?
Yeah.
So, Rickard, do a little bit of an intro of yourself, please, and then let's do some screen shares today. Keep it conversational, but very much we've got to go from the basics because the audience. You're talking to the civilian community, not the developer community. But I think this will be really, really interesting to get your take on this dimension of AI disruption.
Yeah, I'll try and stay civil. Uh, my background, like, so I'm a coder. So like I've been tinkering with computers since I was 12 years old. So that is now 48 or 38 years going. So that's like my happy place too. I like coding, like I love coding. And then on top of that, for the last 25 years, I've been a serial entrepreneur. So I've been building software for primarily enterprises and B2B. So that's my forte. That's what I do. But I retired, like quote unquote, as a professional developer, I would say like 15 years ago, and only like focusing on product development and business development, building companies. Right now, I'm building my fifth company. So that is like my background. So coming back to the coding bit, then it's like I'm pretty happy. Vibe coding for me, like there's a lot of quote unquote debates going on around it. Either you're vibe coding or you're coding with AI assistance. And this is, I would say, like it's the full stack developers who are a little bit scared about what's going on, needs to
Right.
kind of define this, right? Vibe coding dirty, AI assisted coding nice. I couldn't care less myself, but I think it's the same thing. But you're right. There was the OpenAI co-founder who accidentally said something like, "I'm just vibing here and coding, asking my little AI to create something," and all of a sudden, bloop, bloop, it just created something, and he was just quote unquote vibing, right? So that's like how the term came about. But vibe coding just literally means to build some kind of an app with natural language. You don't have to do any coding or anything. You don't have to understand anything. It will just push out something in the other end. That is like literally vibe coding. And it's also anything AI in the field of AI. It's the part or the piece that has been moving the fastest. Like because you mentioned Replit becoming mainstream, and then you have Lovable as another one, and Bolt and there's new ones popping up to the left and right. So I was like, if that answers your question as a good starter at least.
Yeah, it does, and that I think that like the layperson can understand that you're now gonna use an LLM and you're gonna tell it what you want. And so I was practicing with Replit. Literally, I was doing this morning, right? This is how backward I am. Let me share my screen. So anybody who's listening to this on Spotify or Apple, what I did was I just went onto Replit and I created an account that took me about 4 seconds. And this is replit.com, replit.com. And I said, "Hi, create a website for my podcast, AI Outcomes." I attached the cover artwork. Here's the description. I just copied and pasted it off YouTube, and I gave it the YouTube link to my podcast. And then it then came up. The system then said, "Okay, I see what you want. You want to create a website for your podcast." And then it came up with an initial version for me to review. And indeed, this wasn't instant. So this is pretty basic stuff, I'm guessing, for what people are using this for. But it wasn't instant. About 5 minutes later, it's built this website that if you're watching this on YouTube now, you can see. And indeed, it's got my latest episode from last week, and it's basically come up with various things and a structure for it. And actually now it's changed because before it was building it, now it said, "Are you ready to share with the world?" And there is now a deploy button showing. So that's how a literally a a layperson such as myself who's never even doesn't even know what coding really is able to now go onto one of these platforms and start a process of creating a website. So, Rickard, that's my first foray into the developer world, and I was pleasantly surprised. I guess there's a whole bunch of stuff there about where's the website going to be hosted, where's the who's going to link up the domain name, and all of that stuff. But I'm pretty sure Replit will probably help me along with that.
Yeah, that's a part of the whole prompting process. Like, because there's always two at least two pieces to building an app is like build it like you just did, and then okay, now I need to make it accessible to the world, and that's deploy, and then connect the domain and whatnot. So the agent will help you through that. But what you just did is literally vibe coding. Like, and a website is an application, right? So, it doesn't really matter if you go to CNN.com, that's like an application. Or if you go to your CRM using HubSpot or whatever, you're using your browser, it's a website or web application. And the most common use case right now, using Replit or Lovable, whatever, is building exactly what you did, like building a landing page for something. Like,
Okay.
it's for a marketer, best thing in the world. I can build a campaign site in a couple of minutes. You said you gave the artwork and you gave the guidance, and here's the language you should be using. And then 5 minutes later, they have a landing page, and then they just deploy it, and then they can launch a campaign on LinkedIn or do email marketing. And the marketer can do that all by themselves.
Yeah.
No IT
Yeah.
involved. In the past, would be some kind of IT if you're using HubSpot to build a landing page. And it's like, oh, there's some missing pieces. Can you please build a new module? Can you build XYZ so I can build my page? That's not the case right now, right? Now you can do it all the way for yourself. So literally, like, we're like, peeling the onion, right? Layer by layer. But, a marketer a year ago would never consider themselves being anything close to being a coder or even being able to do what you just did this morning to prove a point with Replit. And it seems so easy. It's like almost like weird. Like, it did
Yeah.
what I was supposed to do. It used the right colors, and the LLM is also creating pretty good copy. And as you can see, it's making a lot of good assumptions, creating pretty good UI as well. Like the design is pretty nice. And that is also like because it's quote unquote easy to train an LLM to say this is the common style of websites today, use that with a different palette. But you literally just vibe code it, period. And then you
Yeah.
can just iterate and say like, change that. I want that button, make that bigger. Have 5 YouTube videos on the first page. Create a sub page saying show the whole archive, and it will build for you, build for you, build for you.
Yeah, because it's saying that, isn't it, down here? So if I just hop on my share again, and then I want to talk about well what you've been doing, and then
Yeah,
into kind of enterprise use cases. But yeah, just on my share, back sharing my screen again for anyone just listening to this, and yeah, indeed, you can see down here that it's come up with my a first attempt, which, as Rickard, you say, is pretty good. It's not going to win
yeah,
any design awards, but hey, for an audience, if you needed a landing page, it'd be great. And then it's saying, hey, do you want to add a database to store user data? And it's really just it's just trying to be super helpful, isn't it?
yeah,
So
yeah,
after this, I will continue with this experiment, but I would encourage everybody to to hop onto Replit, Lovable. I'm sure there's a bunch of these things,
yeah.
and that's with a free account. So it tried to get me to get, I think it was $25 a month subscription, and I was like, nah, I'm going
Mm.
free account. So at some point, I'm gonna hit a something that's going to hit a paywall. Which, but do I mind hitting a paywall? This looks pretty good to me. So yeah, Rickard, what are you guys doing? Tell everyone about what your initiative on LinkedIn was. That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah. So I want to kind of break down the barriers, as I said, like between since I'm a coder myself, right? Uh, I don't think vibe coding is dirty, and I don't care if you want to call it AI assisted or not. I just want to use the tools we have at hand to build something really, really fast. And a part of for me retiring as a developer as well was basically like having some kind of ADHD. So like coding requires a lot of coding before you see an output. And I didn't have that, attention span anymore to code, code, code and have an output like weeks later. Now with vibe coding, like, okay, that really is down my alley in terms of creating something and you see an output as you saw like in a couple of minutes. But my background, as I said, is in B2B enterprise. So my conclusion as well is like with how fast things are moving right now, every company, right, is becoming a software company. Anyone can build a software. In the past, you called a expensive consultant to build an internal tool because you wanted to optimize a workflow or something like that. You wanted to pull out data from Salesforce. It was very expensive. They always went south and so on and so forth. Now you can do that yourself. So that means like literally every company is now a software company. So, and I think that's where it's going to explode. Like it's one thing, you're not going to vibe code Facebook. Now,
Right.
at least I'm probably going to eat those words in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
But you won't build Facebook now. You won't build Spotify or whatever. You can't vibe code that. But you can for sure vibe code hundreds of internal apps to optimize workflows. I think we touched the, Klarna, who's like boldly said last year, we're going to scrap all the different tools and just like use AI to build our internal tools and workflows and whatnot. I don't think that's true in the end. Like you still need Salesforce or whatever it is, because but you can see it as a huge data set. And then you want to pull out information and build dashboards or workflows around that. And again, in the past, that was very complicated and you needed expertise. Now you don't. You can build thousands of apps around Salesforce as a data set, dashboards, workflows, using vibe coding. So it will have a huge impact on enterprises. And enterprise, I don't mean like, Fortune 50 or Fortune 500. I mean, everything from 10 employees and up will have a huge benefit from vibe coding and creating internal apps. And that's going to literally, in my opinion, explode this year moving forward. We're going to see so much moving there. It's like crazy. So that's why I like wanted to, and then I was like also kind of fed up with all the LinkedIn posts saying like, I built this in 4 minutes or 10 minutes and give me something and I will give it to you. So they got like 500 comments for something. And then in reality, they spent like weeks to build it, whatever it's because it's a lot of tweaking. So I want to build like I want to show how it was vibe code live, so to speak, in real time, like all the different obstacles you will run into, because what you just experienced with Replit, the first prompt will give you something that feels magical because you never done it before. And then you start talking to Replit because now you're going to get into the details, like, yeah, I want to do this and that. And all of a sudden, Replit's going to go a little bit south. That's going to, it's like, nah, you didn't do the right thing. And then you're going to get annoyed. And then it's really like, like a self-driving car. If something happens and you don't put the hands on the wheel, something bad's going to happen. It's the same thing with
Yeah.
AI vibe coding. It's like when it starts like wearing off in a wrong direction, you either amplify that, which you probably will, or you can steer it correctly. And that's where my code brain comes into hand because I can see when the AI is taking the wrong fork. Like, no, no,
Yeah.
you can't take that off ramp. You need to continue here and do this instead, and so on and so forth.
Well, and just on that point, Rickard. So for me as a business owner, do do I fire my web designer because hey, I can go onto Replit and do this myself? I don't. What I would like is for my web designer to use these new tools and say, Ben, we can push this way, way further now.
Yeah.
Because I've got a budget for web design, right?
Yeah.
And so I say to my web designer, okay, here's $3,000 to stand up a website.
Yeah.
I would like my web designer to come back to me and say, awesome news, Ben. You know, we were having to hold back on a bunch of functionality because the budget was only 3K and not 50K.
Yeah.
With AI, I can do way more for you for 3K.
Yeah.
And so I'm still going to give them pay the
Yeah.
3K, or maybe I get a discount to 2.5. I don't know, but I'm still I'm happy to pay the 3K. But if I can get something tremendously more function faster,
Yeah.
as a business owner, I'm all in on that. It helps me grow, right?
Yeah. 1,000%. So like, it's not. AI is not going to eat any jobs anytime soon. It has like in some capacity, but I always say like there's more middle management if you look at Microsoft's latest layoff. But in general, like, embrace it, use the AI tools to accelerate because whoever you
Yeah.
are, and you as a business owner, you can start what you just did now with Replit, and then you can involve a web designer or an app developer later and say, okay, here's my Replit account, here's my prompt, continue on that. Because I said, like, if you have a coder brain, you will get even more out of it because you can, steer it in the right direction. So it doesn't go off ramp or create stuff that's going to be spaghetti code in the end that's not going to be useful for anyone. And you kind of have to
Yeah.
just reboot and do it all over again. So no, definitely like keep that, but like you will get like you can get something out of it, like you will be spending 30K instead of 3K, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and that's what I want as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You mentioned the enterprise, so I just want to make sure I didn't lose that because I think you made a really good point that I hadn't really got that straight in my head until we did our briefing call. And what that point was is I said, well, the big news story from last year is Klarna came out and said we're going to kick out Salesforce.com and Workday because our generative AI is producing the applications that we need, store all that data. We just don't need them anymore. It
Yeah.
turned out that that was a little bit may
Hyperbolic.
disingenuous. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And when a company's pre-IPO and looking to raise money and cut costs and all that, that those sorts of messages can happen. So I don't think that ended up happening. But what you said is no, Ben. The perspective. No, this is how you should look at it. A company needs its kind of institutional memory and compliance, so they're probably going to keep their SFDC and their Workday kind of HR platforms and finance platforms, but they're going to build on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's how, and that was a really, really useful perspective for you to give me, Rickard.
Yeah, and I think because that's like the real leverage for enterprises because each unit, business unit, team, whatever it is, like has their like ID, how they want to extract information or present data, or as I mentioned, like creating workflows or converse with the data. Um, and that has not been like a viable, option before, but now it is. And with that said, like because all the different tools we have today, Salesforce, HubSpot, XYZ, they're modern. They have API endpoints, it's called. You don't even have to understand what it is, but that means I can extract data from that, and I can even write data if I want that. And then that combined with vibe coding, you can build hundreds of apps. And the best thing is also you can iterate incredibly fast. Like because of what I noticed when I was now building in public and using vibe coding is like when I see something go wrong, it's almost easy to start over and just like, okay, let's scrap it. Let's start a new prompt. Now I know how I should do it from the beginning and just build a new app with the same kind of same outcome, but just different. So instead of trying to, because in the end, like I was thinking it was, yeah, yesterday actually, I was working with Replit. I was really mad at Replit. I was like incredibly frustrated. The F-bomb was almost dropped. Then I realized, like, it made a decision for me that was incorrect for my end product, but it made a decision for me early based on the prompt I gave it. So then I had to say, like, okay, if I want to do what I want to do in the end, I just have to reboot the whole thing and start over. And literally, I was back at square one, so to speak, same day. Like, even if I spent 2 days before building something, I was back on like the same kind of application, but with a completely different tech stack. The same day, I decided to go differently because you learn, right? And then it's like
Yeah.
pretty fast to come back to your checkpoint or whatever you want to call it. So that's also like interesting, I think, with the vibe coding and approach. But that's what I'm saying. Like when building then internal apps based on existing systems you have in place, it's a no-brainer and it's a no cost in this sense. Like it's and the outcome you're going to save. Hope you're building an app to save time, right? Because you want to instead of using 5 different tools to get some data into something to present on a dashboard here, you can do it in one step maybe because you built an app to do it for you.
Sure. Okay. Well, and that is a really, really good summary of the challenge that you're going to face. It's not it's not just free of charge. You're just going to get this amazing outcome. It's a high chance you're going to hit roadblocks and drop an F bomb or two. Um, uh, uh, it, but nonetheless, super powerful to build apps on top of your legacy systems and derive. We always hear this term, getting value from your data. And that's what
Yeah.
this means for me is if, okay, so I've got an API, it means I can go get data and I can put data in and but I can start getting more value from my data. How often have we heard that? So get your perspective on that, and then yeah, let's hop on to if you want to share your screen. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that you've been working on, Rickard.
Yeah, sure. Let me just prep a little.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, on that topic too, right? The cool because it's not only now like getting the data and you have vibe coding because to finish that thought, like there's two tracks to the AI, right? One track is okay, I'm building something really fast because I can do that with AI vibe coding. The other piece is using AI and LLMs to do something with the data I'm getting. That's two things, right? You're building an app and then you're using AI to do something with the data. I usually talk, use the phrase like a conversational UI to the AI that is consuming your data, three layers, right? But the cool thing there is like before it was like one to one, like I have to extract some data, I look at the data, and then I make some conclusions around that. In this era, right, you ask as for as much data as possible. Just dump data to me, and then you push that into your LLM. You give it specific instructions saying this is European sales data for blah 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 blah. And then you can start asking questions about the data. It understands the data. It can find anomalies. It can find trends. It can find X, Y, Z. And now you're speeding it up on both ends. You built an app incredibly fast, and then instead of doing a big data set and push it into BI tool where you can drill down into data, scrap all that, take the whole data set, push it into an LLM, start asking questions. And from an enterprise point of view, that is like incredibly cool, in my opinion, right? But let me share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm gonna show another tool called V0.
Okay.
It's built by a company called Vercel. Vercel is famous for something called Next, and that is just a backend framework or a framework in general to build. So it's very, very robust. It's called Next.js actually. It's very similar to Replit. I would argue it's a little bit faster, and it's also not as stingy as Replit. You don't hit the paywall too fast. But I would also
Okay.
say V0 is a little bit more for maybe professional coders, if you might say so. But it still works like for
And
a non-coder, so to speak.
yeah, and for anyone just listening, can't see Rickard's screen share here. He's gone on to Vercel, Vercel, and it's come up with same as Replit. It just looks like a ChatGPT type interface. It's like, hey, start giving me some prompts, right? That's what we're seeing on the screen right now.
Yeah, correct. Um, and then I'm just gonna see if I have the right project up here, which I do. Uh, so this is just like as a fun thing, right? I created an application. I'm showing the end result right now. Okay, so this is a part of my build in public. I built it in 4 days, and 45 minutes per day is my goal or my rule. Like I'm not allowed to spend more time than 45 minutes a day from the get-go.
Right.
And each time I start a project, I'm using something I never used before. So I never used V0 or Vercel before I started building it. And my project description at the beginning of the week for this particular project was, I want to build an quote unquote WhatsApp experience where I can have obviously people talk to each other, but I also want to be able to create knowledge agents so we can have them in the mix. I want to treat human AI agents like they're humans in the conversation, and I want to have like a WhatsApp experience. That was like the project descriptions, and then I started building. Um, and as I said, it took, a little bit more than.
So you literally start your first prompt into the message box is just what you just outlined then, just an
Yeah,
overall
exactly. I
summary.
think I even have it
Ah,
like
here we go. You go to
I
back
want
to
to
the
start a simple with an MVP using Weavy Power Components for now. Blah blah blah. I'll help you create a simple MVP. Perfect. And then it just goes on and on and on.
sure.
So here's the whole conversation I had like with Vercel. And it's quite a few back and forth, and sometimes you get frustrated, but it's cool because it's like really generating things fast. And what I was very surprised from V0, and this is kind of also the difference, right? Because I think V0 or Vercel here is really good at building an app, web app, while when you did Replit, right, it was really good at now building a website for you. It's still an app, but it's just the looks of it is a little bit different. Because if you look here, like the output, so this is the output. Here's like I can create a conversation. I can throw in some people into a conversation and start having that conversation. That's the WhatsApp, experience, obviously.
Yeah, sure, sure. So
Uh,
it's emulating. It's built an app that looks and feels completely like the WhatsApp experience,
yeah,
but you've got real humans who are in your team. Um, uh, Weavy's the company. Rickard's CEO of Weavy.
yeah,
So and then you've got your AI agents in there
yeah.
as
Then
well.
I
You
can
said, yeah,
create, and then I even built an interface to create new agents. So I can create a new agents saying, podcast inspiration, inspo, we can call it
yeah,
inspo. Yep. So, and then I can give it strength. You are a master in podcast IDs, etc. It's very simple. And then I create that agent. So now we have a podcast inspo.
whoa,
And now on top of that, I can create knowledge. So I can actually upload files from my computer. Say like, I have all these transcripts from my previous podcast, or this is a podcast I really look up to. I will upload that and I want to use that style or whatever that might be. So I'm just going to take a Word document. It doesn't really matter. But what I'm doing here right now is actually adding knowledge to
sure,
to the agent. So it's not just about chit-chatting with a generative AI, because I can do that with ChatGPT. Now I'm building my own agent with my own knowledge set, and I can steer it in a direction and say, you this and that. And now we have the PI, podcast inspo. Then this conversation I just started, right, with Johan, Linnaeus, and Martin. Let's say I actually want to then add that. I added a member because, as I remember, I want to treat my agents like they're humans. So here is my podcast inspo. So I'm adding that to now my conversation, my WhatsApp conversation. And then I can just add podcast inspo. Give me
whoa.
some inspo. And obviously, it will instantly respond, and it's not going to give us a good answer because we haven't given a proper prompt, we haven't given it proper knowledge or whatever. But it's like working, and
Yeah, there you go.
here's some to talk about. And the cool thing, since we're now in a group chat, I can then say, "Hey, Martin, what do you think?"
Yeah.
And now we have AI humans in a group chat, and then further down we can just talk to the AI again and say like, let's go in this direction. So instead of, because this is what I want, like a chat GPT experience. What is that? It's just me and an AI, me and an AI, me and an AI. And then I take the output and I copy paste it into a Word document, or I send an email, or I Slack it or something like that. Why just don't keep it in one flow? And then I can add other agents into it, because maybe we then have, oh, this is great. Let's involve our copy creator agent, which is in phenomenal creating good content for our website, to take this podcast idea and create some content for our landing page. But so this
So
is like one thing I built like in like less than 3 hours in total.
that's incredible. And I'm going to ask you a question, but let me just touch on what you just said. So you said you're limiting yourself to 45 minutes a day
Yeah.
on this because you've got to work. You have to have a is it relationships are important as well sometimes. So that's so how long would this have taken in the old world to
Oh,
create this?
from scratch to this product we have in front of us, I was a month. I
Whoa.
was 6 to 8 weeks minimum. And it wouldn't even be as feature complete as this.
Right.
Because this
Right.
is also published, right? I can send this link to you
Yeah.
now, and it's integrated with Google, so I can log in with my Google account, single sign on. Uh, you know, it would take months to get to this point. Like it's not even a competition. And
And
this
it
is the reality we have in front of us right now, like how fast you can build things.
so if I'm CEO of a company, I've got my North America team, I've got my European team, and I'm like, I think we're missing something in sales. I can in Europe. Why aren't we doing as well as Why is the European sales team not doing as well as the North American team? I can create an AI agent called North America Sales Expert,
Yeah,
and I can train that AI agent, feed it all of my sales data from North America and from
yeah,
Europe, and say, figure this out. What are they doing differently? And I can my customer marketing campaigns, all of that data, I can train that AI agent on, and then I drop them into the chat with my sales leaders.
yeah, and also that can also be data in terms of how the different regions are doing. So I can ask North America, what's your quota? You're going to say X. Okay, Europe, what's your quota? X. North America, how close are you to your quota? 80%. Europe, where are you? And then, it can be the whole sales team, and then you have these agents, chit-chatting, and it's just like it's super cool. Like in the end, like
Yeah,
you have to be like you have to really think outside the box here to understand how much you actually can do with minimal resources now. Like this is like so hard to comprehend to understand that you can do so much with so little right now.
that's it's absolutely mind blowing, isn't it? And when you start thinking and creatively, and then maybe you start ideating with, I don't know, a chat GPT and say, how could we, I've created this, how could I make this better? These are the problem statements I'm answering for. And then it's going to say, why don't you create this agent? Why don't you do this differently?
Yeah. And that is a
Ah,
good point as well, like, because you have the major players being Gemini, Anthropic, Claude, and then ChatGPT, right? To involve them all, because have them chit chat with each other and like reasoning back and forth. Because the big players who are building different AI services, they usually use more than just one LLM
yeah,
to get a better output in the end. And you can obviously do that manually, as you said right now. But yeah, I think the future right now is like it's looking really, really bright in that sense, but it's also moving incredibly fast. And I think like it's just you need to start leaning into this heavy to understand how much you can do. Because if you don't
yeah,
lean in at all, and also go bonkers, like go crazy in the prompting, ask it things you would never think it will do for you and fix for you, and I guarantee you it will probably fix it for you.
yeah,
That was my
yeah,
biggest like hurdle in the beginning. It's like they will never do that, and I do this for me. And it's like, oh shit, it actually did it, and it worked. And it's like, yes,
yeah.
this is nice. Let's move.
So, Rick, that's it's brilliant. It's fascinating. I'm so glad we did that screen share, because without seeing the screen share, without seeing you doing this live, you can't wrap your. It's too ethereal. You can't wrap your head around the concept.
No,
But one question I had for you. So you've founded and you're chief executive of Weavy.
yeah,
How have you seen the market and your business change? Because you founded the company before the big chat GPT
yeah,
kind of blew
two
up the
years before.
world two
Yeah,
years before.
yeah.
So that's what I was thinking as you were doing that demo. Is like, what's changed? What was it like then, and what's changed for your business right now?
Yeah, exactly. What's still the same is like our goal with Weavy from the get-go was like we want to be able to give any developer back then the power components so they can build specifically collaboration features for their app without spending months of doing so and just take our component, drop it in, get it done. But our goal, our ICP was obviously developer, primarily a full stack developer. And we're also focusing on software companies. So like, okay, that is like, a pretty small, total addressable market and a small amount of people. It's not like professional developers world is like 20 million or something like that. And obviously, so we stayed true to that, like weave it in, simplicity, powerful components. And then for the last, I would say, 6 to 7 months, it shifted dramatically because now we bursted out of the bubble of 20 million professional developers to the rest, which according to Gartners and others are roughly 70 million, 70 million developers. They call them citizen developers, which is like people who are not professional developers, but they build things. And now they're doing that incredibly fast. So now all of a sudden the target's not 20, it's 90. And the best thing with the citizen developers for me is like they don't build things, they don't build Facebook, right? So they have like a different, mindset in terms of getting things done. They just want to get it done. So it's a very attractive ICP for us in the end. So now we're leaning heavy into uh, enabling vibe coders to do more in their apps. Because when you actually build an app, like you built a website right now, when you build apps, you usually build something called CRUD apps. You can Google it, but that is an acronym for create, read, update, delete. It's like a Salesforce is that. You create a record, you read a record, you update a record, you delete the record. Database driven, data driven, anything. Dashboards, XYZ. Vibe coding is exceptional well to build those kind of apps. But as soon as you want to do, like I just showed you, something collaborative, like you're going to chit chat in real time, you're going to involve AI and plumbing systems behind the scene and da 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 da. You can still do it with V0 or others, but it's not going to be as good, and it's probably not going to work properly in the end, and it's going to be a lot of iterations. So that is what we're leaning into, okay? So because if you see, like when you built a website, right, with Replit, it probably used something already pre-built or something everyone is using. It can be something called Bootstrap, how the layout is done, or something called Tailwind, which is like how you style things. So you're still using components, right, to build something really, really fast. And if you want
And
to do
and
dashboard with visualization, it will use a component. And
and
we want to be one
on that,
component of that.
sorry, Rickard, to interrupt, but I think that's a really important point because I saw it doing that, but I didn't mention that. So as Replit was building my website, yeah, you can see where it's going off to all these different logos were coming up at the bottom
Yeah,
of its development, and it was saying I'm going here to get this, I'm taking a look over here for branding, and yeah, so it's going out onto the internet
yeah,
and finding sources to
yeah.
build from.
Built from and proven things, right? That things that works. So it's not making everything up from scratch. You know what I mean? It's not creating a database for you. It's using something, a Supabase or MongoDB, right? So I think like, and that's what I realize now building in public as well, when the vibe coding is like, the future is like the vibe coding is the glue, right? The how you put pieces thing together, and it's really great at collecting data and getting data out and present it in front of you. And then when you have that in front of you, you can start like branching out from that and actually build a proper app with all the features you actually want. And then you
Yeah.
start using components for that because every component is best in breed of something, either present a chart, a pie chart, or as in our case, like a chat. And then all of a sudden, you're really building the app you want to build, and it literally has all the bells and whistles. But again, instead of 2 months, we can do it in 3 hours,
Yeah.
and that is insane if you think about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anybody listening to this podcast who runs a business, if you want to understand more about this and how this might help you, I would just say reach out to Rickard and his team because I mean we've been I spoke to you last week and we've been on the podcast now this episode for about 50 minutes and I've just learned a whole ton of stuff that I didn't know before. But as an entrepreneur, my mind is already ticking over with, I've got some ideas.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So it's almost like you need to have a partner like yourselves who you can ideate with
Yeah,
because you can't hit a roadblock. And if these products are going out to on the internet, basically, then what's it picking up? I can see you have to have a good partner involved. You've got to
yeah,
stay safe on this and not have any public um, uh, screw ups. Let's be careful what data we don't put into the AI agent. Hey,
Yeah.
and we're seeing all that stuff, Copilot finding Teams groups and sharing all the data from the
Yeah.
chat,
All of a
and
sudden,
all of this. So, what's your perspective on kind of like going from a going from where someone is now to right? How do we get to something that's workable? Where do we make a start?
right? Because again, that's why I want to split the world into two pieces. Right? One is the enterprise world building internal apps, and then it's easier because you don't have to think about all that because it's governed already between your own infrastructure and so on and so forth. So I think that like that's where we're going to see the first explosion. At the same time, we're going to see a ton of applications being built, like for public, like whatever that might be, a chat experience for mental health or whatever, right? There's going to be tons of things coming up. And if you want to put the devil's advocate on your shoulder, right? It's going to be. I think I used the term like there's going to be a lot of Bernie Madoffs in this world where they build apps that seems to be very robust and be very secure and have all the different logos saying it's secure, but in the back end it's a lovable app built with SUPA base with like secret keys open to the left and right and talking to a generative open AI model, and you don't have a clue.
Right.
And so you're gonna see that, and you're gonna see a lot of blow ups in the future for sure. And some might be ill intent from the get-go, and some might not. Like they just want to build, and they do because they can, and they get traction, and then all of a sudden, like they're trapped. Uh, but we're gonna see that for sure because that's an issue that a lot of people are talking about right now. Is like in Sweden or in Europe, we have GDPR, right? How is that? How the app I'm building? Where's the data? Is it in Europe at all? Like
Yes. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
might even be like in, Eastern Europe or like in East Coast USA. I don't know. I have no clue. Like, yeah, so I mean, those are the things you have to think about, even as building a B2C application because GDPR here in Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, at the same time, these different tools, Lovable, Bolt, and so on and so forth, they're moving like in a high velocity in terms of fixing things, hearing the feedback, and on their end, it's the same thing. They're training their model to avoid problems. So their software development cycles are very different from the time when you built like Salesforce CRMs. Like
Right.
even for them, like what they're building for us to use in this third party, their cycles are very, very different as well because they're approaching it from a prompting/instructions and training a model. And then obviously you can tell that model, it's like you need to make sure that the data ends up in Europe.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
thing is like right now, it's like even if you train a model incredibly strict, it will, to my knowledge so far, always hallucinate and it will always make up shit. And it might tell you the data is in Europe, but it's actually in USA because it will please you. If you is this data in Europe, it's going to say absolutely exclamation. Of course it is. They didn't probably even check, or they just made an assumption because LLMs are assumptions. Like it's a lot of guessing work. Like that's how it works. Like it guesses, and this is the best guess. This is 99.2% probably the right answer. It's
And
not
it does.
100% ever.
And just as a daily user of ChatGPT, and I use DeepSeek, and
Yeah,
I'm using two things now for different purposes, right?
yeah.
I use DeepSeek for very specific. I love its reasoning capabilities. Just seems to be different.
Okay.
But both of those models, with regularity, we've given it the term hallucinate, but they talk shit, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah,
bullshitting
yeah.
you.
Don't tell me, and I'm doing research, and I'm saying to it, and ChatGPT says, "Yeah, this is a really good point, Ben. You should cover this on the podcast because Mark Zuckerberg recently made this quote about it." And I say to ChatGPT, "Give me the source link for the quote," and it goes and has a little think and goes, "Oh, I can't actually seem to find the source link for it." And did you make that up? And in the end, it will say to you,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
yeah, I did. I made
yeah,
a
I
I,
was
I
talking
made
shit."
a calculated guess, okay?
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
what it
yeah.
is.
I
Right?
thought that's what you wanted to hear.
And that's why
And
I'm like really scared. Not scared, but there's, some software creating law AI. So me as a lawyer, or I can be a layman and using a specific AI engine for laws and like to be compliant, whatnot. And they say like, it's 100% accurate. I don't know how it can be that if it's 100% AI, it cannot be 100% accurate. It will make up some shit in the end.
right.
Unless like you put a hand on it and on top, like you have a layer on top that is like doing normal IT stuff, like correlating some information towards a database, and if that checks out, okay, it is correct. Like must be like a last touch on it before you put it out, because laws. There is a gray zone depending who you ask, right? But you can't be wrong, like in that sense. I think that's interesting. The AI.
Yeah, and it's also obviously we're seeing a lot of customer services using AI. I was talking to a CEO yesterday, and yeah, obviously he's got a lot of customers out there that are now accessing his customer services, and if it's out of hours, they go through to an AI agent, and in business hours, they go through to a human. So a sensible use of AI, and he said it's not that it makes stuff up. He said it, but it won't find nuance. Like if somebody needs to make a change to a booking that they've made and that's against policy, it will just go back and just be so black and white on the policy, which you'd expect it to do. It's a robot, and someone's saying, and they can see the dialogue that's going on with the agents, and someone's saying, "But no, you don't understand. My mum's ill. I'm not asking to cancel. I just want to move it." And the AI agent's like,
Nope.
"No." and so then the human comes
Uh,
in the morning, and the AI agent is what it's doing is really handy for the business because it's prioritizing as well as
uh,
saying, "Hey, you've just arrived at work and got your coffee. Go check this chat first because
uh,
I didn't get to a resolution on it." And so but the counter to that is that what the CEO also told me is he said they've been surprised about how long the conversations are going on between the humans and the AI agents, and so they're getting the humans like it. They like talking
yeah,
to the agents.
yeah. No, but ChatGPT is a pretty good proof of that. Like just chatting away, and like who wouldn't want to chat with a 100% agreeable counterparty, right? Because that's what they
Yeah,
are. They will
yeah,
always say,
yeah,
"Yeah, you're right." Like
yeah,
the sky
yeah.
is red, and
Yeah, I told I was talking to my AI about business kind of strategy. I was saying this is what I'm doing. What do you think? And it was being too agreeable. So
yeah,
I said to it, and I was talking to ChatGPT using the voice mode, right? So
yeah,
I said to it, I said, tell me what a really tough founder, like, tell me what Elon Musk would make of my plan. And it came back and it said, "Oh, you want some tough love, do you?" And I said, "Yes, I
yeah,
do."
yeah,
And it
yeah, yeah,
came back, it was still constructive, but it just brought all the timelines forward. It was way more aggressive. So it's constructive. And I said,
yeah,
"That's the mode. Give me some tough love." But
yeah.
anyway, on that note, Rickard, we're hitting an hour, and I
Yeah,
could talk
sorry.
talk about this stuff all day with you. So learned a ton. Where do people find you to reach out to Rickard?
LinkedIn, obviously. Rickard is the Swedish spelling, so it's Rickard Hansson, Hansson. Or just hit me up on weavy.com, weavy.com. And you can book me there as well. I'm happy to talk about anything. It doesn't have to be about my stuff. It can be about your vibe coding strategies or s- fear of them or excitement about them. Don't care. Just like love to talk to people and get insights what's going on out there.
Absolutely brilliant, Rickard. Okay, I'll put those links in the show notes below. So, Rickard, learnt a ton. Thank you very much. I keep saying this to people, but you got to come back on. You got to come back on in 6 months because this is just going to have all changed again, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna have a completely different world in 6 months for shizzle.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Let's leave it there. Let's wrap it up. And Rickard, thank you very much.
Thank you.